Okay, so I want to talk about privacy. So today in our group, I posted that, privacy in cryptocurrency is a point of contention, and I want to discuss it in detail tonight. I want to hear everyone's thoughts in our group, not just about privacy coins, but basically, human rights to privacy versus living in that surveillance state. And, a guy that I consider a hero is Edward Snowden. So arguing that you don't care about privacy because you have nothing to hide is no different than saying you don't care about free speech because you have nothing to say. And there's plenty of great quotes out there about just because you've got nothing to hide doesn't mean that, someone should be able to know every detail of your life. And for the first time, really in history, we've now got to a point, this is a famous book by George Orwell, 1984, about the surveillance state where every detail of your life was monitored and recorded. And we're now in that digital age where, every little device around you is, listening. And I've actually got screenshots of, when you're talking about something in your camera mic, or Google searches will start putting up pop-up and ads around words you've said or conversations you've had on Facebook, and that what data from what apps and websites is being shared to where, to other places, to force things down your throat. And then again, who gets to monitor all that? So it really has gradually got to this point, and this was conspiracy stuff, only 10 years ago, and it's, it's almost becoming reality now. So I put out that tweet. Do you believe governments, corporations have too much access to our personal data? And pretty overwhelming yes there, guys. Probably not a lot of surprise from our audience, but it's great to see that maybe a lot of people do agree, and that this is something that does get people's emotions up and people are passionate about. So in 2008, this is the largest companies in the world by market cap. And have a look. A lot of these are sort of resources based, fossil fuels, Gazprom, Russia, Royal Dutch Shell, communications, AT&T, General Electric car companies. But now 10 years later, as I said, we really are in the digital age where the top companies, Apple, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, Tencent, Berkshire Hathaway shares, so Alibaba, just about every company there, Johnson & Johnson, and then JP Morgan. But look at those guys. It's all, software, websites. We truly do live in that digital age where these are the largest companies in the world. But the other thing to remember is some of these companies, Facebook's free to use. How is it the fifth largest company in the world? It is because of the value that other companies place on your data that Facebook sold to these companies, a lot of the time without your permission. And hence why Mark Zuckerberg ended up in front of Congress. And I watched this hearing live, guys, and one of the first questions from a senator was, would you like to tell us what hotel room you stayed at what hotel last night, Mr. Zuckerberg? And he's kind of ummed and ahed and said no. And that's kind of the gist of it. Well, you're doing this. You're selling everyone's data, what they're doing, when they're doing it, where they're doing it, what they're searching, to everyone else. And yeah, it's really raising this debate, and something that I think needs to be talked about more, and is often covered up and not talked about enough because of those interests, because the largest companies all have so much to gain from the, not monopoly, but, oligopoly that they are currently privy to, I guess. So encryption. So a few of you will be familiar with encryption now in terms of cryptocurrencies, cryptography, encryption, digital currencies, all sort of tying together. But encryption's used in, all sorts of digital processing, information transfer. It's not new. We had this back before computers, basic forms of encryption as well. So it's just the process of encoding a message or information in such a way that only authorized parties can access the information. So, hundreds of years ago, there's, cool little devices where you can choose a code or a set of rules that only someone else that knows that set of rules can decrypt or work out the message, I guess. So digital computing and digital encryption has come a long way, as we know, with cryptocurrencies, and not all are encrypted in terms of what they do and the specific functions they perform. So I want to talk about a little bit about that as well now. And the next thing, before I jump into the crypto specific stuff, Article 13 is another point of contention in the news lately about censoring. They're talking about memes and copyright of images and that sort of thing, but really, I think Article 30, this quote sums it up well, takes an unprecedented step towards the transformation of the internet from an open platform and sharing and innovation to a tool for the automated surveillance. So by saying that copyright's going to be closely monitored, it means that all these platforms are going to be scrutinized. And again, another step towards just harvesting all this data and knowing everything about what we're doing and saying to each other. And this isn't black and white, guys. As we said, this is a gradual thing that over time our privacy has just been further and further eroded. And at what point do you say, enough is enough? And it goes for talking about money as well. So that's kind of where I want to segue into now. This has been in the headlines in the crypto world a little bit. Certain exchanges, banning privacy coins. Japan embraced Bitcoin, and that really ignited the rally in early 2017, making it a legal currency for all intents and purposes. But now looking to move away from privacy coins. We've seen other exchanges do it as well, but we've seen governments start to take some stances on this. So privacy coins are one of the greatest emerging threats to US national security, states US congressmen. Again, this is all, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Everyone has their opinion on this, but I certainly think that governments aren't going to, take a liking to privacy coins. So just be aware of that. And it's this issue that we're going to see, as always, money laundering, terrorism, tax evasion, all the bad stuff. But just remember that privacy coins actually have, a lot of uses. So for some people in certain financially suppressed countries or, specific regimes that aren't allowed to do and say certain things, privacy in terms of apps or money transfer can be, the difference between life and death. Some people that can't afford medication, that don't have insurance in certain countries, can buy them cheaper on the dark net. Maybe they don't want to know that, or maybe what they're doing is illegal. Even buying life-saving medication, asthma puffers, can sometimes be a lot cheaper, on the dark web in some examples that I've seen. Medical marijuana, if it's not allowed in your country. Look, guys, whatever it is, I don't want to go down that path too far, but there's certainly use cases where, just because you're using something that's private doesn't mean it's necessarily, a legal activity that needs to be completely banned. So certainly something that I want to continue, and no doubt this video will be demonetized and whatnot, but it's something that I think it's important to talk about, and I want to use this channel to talk about everything from healthcare and corruption in pharmaceutical industries. Obviously, the banking system we talk about a lot. That's why Bitcoin is a huge use case. It's going to continue to grow going forward. But I just wanted to, I guess, really looking forward to reading the comments of what your take is on all this as well. We see the Banking Royal Commission in Australia. Don't even get me started, those top 10 documentaries about the financial crisis and all the fraud and everything that led to the last, recession. But something I wanted to touch on now, I guess, was Bitcoin and what is private. So this is just a blockchain explorer, blockchain.info, for one of the many ways you can explore the Bitcoin blockchain. So if we click on the latest block, this is going to show us the transactions that were in this block, and what we have here is inputs and outputs. So I don't want to get into this too much. I'm going to do an educational video about this, but basically you can continue to click on someone's address and see who they sent some coins to, and then the remainder that goes back to the original address as well. And you can, if you know whose address this is, you can start to say, well, hold on, they keep sending money to this other address. And then there's now programs and tracking ways that we can say, well, we know that person, that's their Bitcoin wallet address on an exchange, and now they're sending it to this address, we can start to infer that that's probably their hardware wallet once they use that a few times. So those programs are getting better. Governments are going to get their head around all this, and they probably have already. I've heard certain things in different countries about different task force and whatnot, but the fact is that Bitcoin is pseudonymous, so it's not anonymous as some people think it is, but different privacy coins obfuscate different things. So some won't even let you see the address that it's coming from or where it's going to. Some privacy coins don't let you see the amounts transacted or the time transacted. Some of them have the, master nodes having copy of records, so you need to trust those master nodes. Some privacy coins only have optional privacy setting, so if the person before you hasn't ever used the privacy setting, everything's traceable up to that point, if that makes sense. So again, it's not black and white. Oh, that coin's private, that coin's not. There's so many degrees of grey and if, buts, and maybes about what is completely private and what's not. And again, I'm going to get that video out that I continue to work on about the different pros and cons of each and the top 10 most commonly used privacy coins. Most of you are probably, Monero is the one that's been around probably the longest. Zcash, PivX more recently. But another thing a lot of people don't realize, guys, and I will keep an eye on some questions at the end. A lot of people don't realize that Ethereum is close to implementing ZK snarks, so privacy and private contracts and so on. But also Bitcoin, has discussed, probably not in the next 12 months, but maybe in the next 12 to 24 months, being able to domain Bitcoin if everyone agrees and we have another hard fork or whatever it is, but Bitcoin might be implementing privacy features. And again, this is very early on in this debate about what is privacy. If something's truly decentralized, I want you to think about it like this, guys. What can you make illegal? So governments can only really control the on-ramps and off-ramps of getting in and out of crypto fiat currencies. A truly decentralized network, running on a truly decentralized internet in the future, once we have all these truly decentralized projects, they are basically unstoppable. How do you stop, lines of code, ones and zeros in a computer if there's no central point of failure? And I guess that's the way that I want you to really think about this at the end of the day. Now, the other thing I just want to mention quickly is that, in the past, certain things that are illegal or ironed out or unavailable in certain countries, whatever it is, can have a price premium placed upon them. So we've seen in the past in certain countries where Bitcoin's very hard to buy, it'll be trading at a 10% premium, and that premium reflects how hard it is to get money in and out of the banks or financial institutions in that country. So all those things, when certain drugs are made illegal, that often puts up the price and creates a whole black economy around that. So some people would argue that if maybe not specifically private coins if they're made illegal, privacy coins are always going to have their use between people in that community, okay? I don't think a lot of people are buying these and saying, oh, look, this is a huge store of value over the next 10 years. I think that's more of an argument for other coins, such as Bitcoin. Their use case, privacy coins' use case, depends on how many people in that community are using them and transactions and more private exchange of value more so. I believe. Anyway, again, interested to hear all your comments below. But don't forget about that when something is banned or pushed back by government, sometimes it can create a premium and people want it even more. It's harder to get, and people that can get it and can sell it to people will actually, be able to sell it for a higher price even. So no doubt short term, of course, it's going to cause a sell-off and panic headlines, but over the long term, maybe it makes it even more of a premium asset. So I just want to leave you with a few quotes as well, guys. So another hero of mine, Andreas, that helped me get into Bitcoin 2012. So Bitcoin's not unregulated. It's regulated by an algorithm. Again, like I said, this is ones and zeros in a computer. This is a consensus mechanism. So regulated by an algorithm instead of being regulated by government bureaucracies. So it's uncorrupted. Again, this stuff, it really makes my blood boil to think about sometimes when you go back and you watch those old financial crisis documentaries. But make sure you follow Andreas's work if you want. So the next quote here is that Bitcoin, the end of money as we know it in the title, but the existing banking system extracts enormous value from society and is parasitic in nature. And we know that how many times you've heard me say decentralizing and cutting out inefficiencies caused by certain middlemen that, they take their clip, banks charge you fees for basically doing nothing these days. It's all automated through computers anyway, but just charging you for things that can now be done peer-to-peer. So again, we're removing the parasitic nature of the current financial system. And final thought that I want to leave you with. JFK, a great guy taken too soon. Those that make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable. And think about the way that Bitcoin has already changed the lives of people living in financially suppressed countries, Venezuela. And I think to some degree, the more and more that people push back, if we really are creating a peaceful, decentralized revolution that's better than the current system, if it continues to get pushed back by government, at some point it's going to lead to a revolution. And people will join it. People will move to other countries. People will want to be part of the new system. So I hope you've enjoyed that tonight, guys. Hit that like button. Really looking forward to reading your comments below. And I'll talk to you again soon. Cheers.